In the bone-dry steppes of eastern Mongolia, there's a remote village where the sky never ends, and where warmth strangely comes not from fire, but from daughters. Each winter as temperatures plunge below 30 degrees 6, a centuries-old tradition awakens. Esteemed male guests are invited to sleep beside the family's unmarried daughter, not out of lust, but survival. Her body heat is the blanket, her consent, often assumed. It's a ritual whispered with pride by elders and met with quiet dread by many young women. In a land famed for its hospitality, this gesture feels both sacred and deeply unsettling. Welcome to Mongolia, where ancient warmth hides a modern chill. Number 1 gender crisis in Mongolia. Far from the bustling megacities of Asia nestled between two giants, Russia and China, lies Mongolia, a land of vast silence where the wind roams freer than people. Here you'll find rolling steppes stretching as far as the eye can see, wild horses galloping across open plains, and nomadic families living in felt-covered yurts called girs. This is the birthplace of Genghis Khan, once the heart of the largest land empire in history. Yet today, Mongolia is a curious blend of past and present, where ancient eagle hunters use smartphones and herders check livestock conditions via satellite weather apps. It's a country steeped in tradition, but quietly battling the pressures of a rapidly modernizing world. And among its most pressing challenges is something invisible but deeply felt: a gender crisis that no one saw coming. In Mongolia's capital city, Ulaanbaatar, the gender scale has tipped, and not just slightly. For every 100 men, there are now nearly 116 women. That's right, 116. At first glance, it may sound like just another statistic, but underneath this number lies a growing social imbalance that's slowly unraveling the fabric of Mongolian society. Step into any university classroom here and the pattern becomes clear. Over 60% of students are women, smart, ambitious, educated. These young women are pushing the country forward. They're learning foreign languages, studying abroad, landing leadership roles. But while they rise, the men fall behind. What's happening to Mongolia's men? Many young men in Mongolia are slipping through the cracks. School dropout rates are higher among boys. Fewer make it to university. According to the Mongolian Statistical Information Service in 2024, male enrollment in higher education was just over 38%, a sharp contrast to female dominance on campus. The reasons. Some blame the lingering aftershocks of a post-Soviet economy, where traditional male labor roles collapsed, but no new paths were built. Others point to a cultural hangover, one that idolizes the strong nomadic man, but forgets to prepare him for a digital urban future. Then there's alcohol. Mongolia has one of the highest per capita alcohol consumption rates in Asia. Men in particular are disproportionately affected. The World Health Organization reported in late 2023 that nearly 1 in 5 Mongolian men suffers from alcohol-related disorders, and with alcoholism often comes unemployment, broken families, and social withdrawal. So what do women do when many of their male counterparts are absent either physically or emotionally? Here's the paradox. These women, smart, resilient, often the backbone of their families, are now being told they're too educated, too independent, too strong to be marriage material. The very qualities that should be celebrated are isolating them. And that brings us to a surprising response: the idea of importing husbands. Yes, you heard that right. Some women, especially in urban areas, have started looking abroad for partners through online matchmaking, international dating platforms, or connections formed during overseas studies. The government has even hinted half-jokingly at policies to balance the numbers by encouraging multicultural unions. But this solution raises tough questions. Is it a fix or a bandage? Can bringing in foreign partners solve deep-rooted cultural and gender issues? Many Mongolians are skeptical. There's concern that importing men may dilute traditional values, spark resentment, or worse, reinforce the idea that Mongolian men are simply disposable. Meanwhile, the women caught in the middle face another battle, the invisible weight of expectation. Despite their success, society still whispers, the old rules: marry, young bear children, serve your husband. A 30-year-old unmarried woman is called a leftover, even if she holds a master's degree and runs her own business. And so we're left with a strange and painful irony. In a land known for its sweeping freedom, endless skies, wild horses, nomads roaming wherever they please, many of its women now find themselves trapped, not by fences or walls, but by numbers, tradition, and silence. Because what good is progress if it means walking alone? Number 2. The guest-warming tradition. In the remote stretches of rural Mongolia, where winter winds howl like wolves and temperatures dip below -40 degrees Celsius, survival has always meant adaptation. Out there in the biting cold of the steppe, there's an old tradition, an ancient gesture of warmth and honor that at first glance seems like the purest form of hospitality. It's called to warm the guest. The idea is simple on the surface. When a guest, especially a male guest, arrives during a freezing night, the family may offer their daughter to sleep beside him, not for romance, not for intimacy, but to share body heat to keep him alive, to warm his bones, so he might see another dawn. To some elders, this is sacred, a symbol of generosity passed down through generations. In a land where firewood is scarce and homes are built from canvas and felt, offering human warmth was seen as both kindness and necessity. But let's pause for a moment and ask at what cost, because behind the poetry of the gesture lies a darker truth. In practice, this tradition has often meant that young women were expected to comply without being asked. Their role wasn't negotiated, it was assumed. In the eyes of many, the daughter wasn't just part of the home, she was the offering. And that's where the beauty of survival blurs into the shadow of inequality. Scholars have long debated the origins and meaning of this ritual. Some anthropologists argue that it was never truly widespread, but more symbolic than literal. Others claim it was practiced selectively with the daughter's consent. But for many Mongolian women today, those debates don't matter. What matters is how the tradition has been remembered and how it's used now. In modern Mongolia, especially in rural areas, stories still surface of families upholding this ritual in isolated communities. According to a 2024 report by the Gender Equality Center of Mongolia, nearly 9% of women in the western provinces said they had experienced pressure to participate in customs they viewed as outdated or exploitative, including guest warming. That number may seem small, but it reflects something larger: the quiet endurance of patriarchy dressed in tradition. Many young people, especially women, are speaking out. In urban centers like Ulaanbaatar, female activists are using social media, art, and education to challenge the romanticizing of rituals that strip women of agency. One viral campaign from 2023 featured the haunting slogan, "I am not a blanket." It hit a nerve, because what seems like a warm gesture to some feels like a cold betrayal to others. Here's the paradox. Mongolia is a country that deeply values respect for nature, for ancestry, for visitors. But when hospitality comes at the expense of a woman's autonomy, it stops being noble. It becomes transactional. And the emotional toll is real. Women who grew up hearing stories of guest warming often describe a quiet fear of not being able to say no, of being expected to sacrifice comfort, safety, even dignity for the sake of family honor. And too often those stories are whispered, not told out loud. But times are changing. More families today are choosing to let these traditions rest in peace, buried beneath modern values and a growing awareness of human rights. Schools are incorporating gender education, community leaders are holding open dialogues. Still, breaking a centuries-old silence takes time and courage. Because unlearning isn't just about forgetting old stories, it's about rewriting new ones. So, the next time someone tells you about the warmth of Mongolian hospitality, remember to ask who paid the price for it, and in the coldest corners of tradition whose voice was never heard. Number 3. Domestic violence and legal failure. Let's talk about something that rarely makes the headlines but quietly ruins lives across Mongolia every single day. Behind the rolling hills, beneath the poetry of nomadic songs and the warmth of ger tents, there's a silence. A heavy one. And it lives in the homes of women who are too afraid to speak, because the ones hurting them are the ones they're told to love. Domestic violence in Mongolia is not just a private issue. It's a national crisis. According to the United Nations Population Fund, as of early 2025, nearly 1 in every 3 Mongolian women has experienced violence from a partner or spouse at some point in her life. 1 in 3. That's not just a number, it's a pattern. A wound that repeats itself in thousands of households, generation after generation. So why is this happening? Well, the roots are tangled, but familiar. Alcohol abuse is one of the biggest drivers Mongolia has, one of the highest per capita alcohol consumption rates in Asia. In rural provinces like Zavkhan and Arkhangai, where access to addiction treatment is limited, alcohol becomes both a comfort and a curse. And when drinking meets deep-seated patriarchy, things get dangerous. There's also the weight of tradition. Many Mongolian families are built around rigid gender roles, men as providers, women as caretakers. But when men lose their jobs or feel powerless in a fast-changing world, that frustration often gets redirected to the people closest to them. And here's the most heartbreaking part. The law is supposed to protect these women, but more often than not, it doesn't. Mongolia passed a domestic violence law in 2016, marking an important step forward. On paper, it criminalized abuse and laid out procedures for protection orders, but in practice, the system is overwhelmed, underfunded, and widely misunderstood. Police often treat domestic violence as a family matter. Cases get dismissed. Victims are urged to reconcile. Shelters exist, but there are too few. As of 2024, the country had only 7 fully operational domestic violence shelters nationwide, 7 for a country of over 3 million people. It's like building an umbrella and then handing it out after the storm has already hit. The psychological toll is immense. Survivors of abuse are not only left with bruises, they're left with invisible scars, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. Many withdraw from work, school, even friendships. The shame is silent, the pain invisible until it's not. In interviews conducted by the National Center Against Violence in 2023, over 40% of women who had endured long-term abuse said they had never reported it, not once. Why? Because they didn't think anything would change. Because the abuser was a relative. Because the community would blame them. Because sometimes they had nowhere else to go. But not all hope is lost. There are glimmers of change. Grassroots movements led by women's groups are pushing for education reform, better training for police, and public awareness campaigns. There's even a growing network of male allies, fathers, brothers, sons, standing up to say this cycle ends with us. Still, the question lingers like smoke in a closed room. When will Mongolia stop treating violence as a tradition and start treating it as a crime? Behind every statistic is a woman who wanted to be heard, a woman who didn't deserve to be hurt. And until justice speaks louder than shame, she'll keep suffering in silence. Number 4. Women carry the economic burden. In Mongolia, strength has long been measured by how well a person could ride a horse-herd livestock or survive the freezing winds of the steppe. But today, strength looks different, and more often than not, it wears the face of a woman. Across both cities and rural towns, Mongolian women are quietly carrying the weight of an unstable economy, not because they want to, but because they have to. Let's start with the basics. In many Mongolian households, especially in the countryside, women are not just caregivers. They're farmers, herders, teachers, and breadwinners all at the same time. They wake up before dawn to feed the livestock, prepare meals, get the children ready for school, and then walk miles to the nearest market or clinic if one even exists. According to a report by the National Statistics Office of Mongolia, in early 2025, over 68% of working-age rural women perform unpaid labor daily, while also shouldering the majority of household duties. That includes raising kids, tending to the elderly, managing family finances, and maintaining livestock. It's not just multitasking, it's survival juggling. And while they're working double shifts at home and in the field, their male counterparts are increasingly checking out. Unemployment among Mongolian men has been steadily rising, especially in rural regions. As of 2025, male unemployment in the provinces sits at over 21%, nearly double the national average. But this isn't just about lost jobs, it's about lost purpose. Many men struggling to find their place in a modernizing society turn to alcohol gambling or online gaming. The effects? Devastating. Families fracture, finances collapse, and women pick up the pieces. One mother in the Gobi Altai province shared in a recent community interview, "My husband hasn't worked in 3 years. I take care of the goats, the children, and the debt. He just drinks and sleeps and waits." Her story isn't unique. It's repeated, village after village, province after province. And while urban Mongolia is growing gleaming towers rising in Ulaanbaatar, the countryside feels forgotten. Clinics are understaffed. Schools lack resources. Roads are unpaved. Job training programs are scarce. So when opportunity disappears, responsibility doesn't. It just shifts to the women. Education too reflects this imbalance. Girls in Mongolia consistently outperform boys at every academic level. In fact, by 2024, more than 62% of university students nationwide were women. But despite their qualifications, many of them still return to villages with limited job prospects and are expected to resume traditional roles anyway. So what happens when a woman is too educated to be dependent, but too poor to be free? That's the silent trap many Mongolian women find themselves in today. They're rising but alone, empowered but exhausted, the pride of the family, but burdened by it too. And here's the hardest part. Society rarely recognizes this labor. It's invisible, it's unpaid, it's expected. But that doesn't mean it's unimportant. Because while the economy stumbles and men fall out of the picture, it's the women who keep Mongolia running. They're not just holding the family together, they're holding the country together. Still, the question remains, how much longer can they do it without support? The answer isn't just about policies or paychecks, it's about respect, recognition, real change. Because no society moves forward when half its people are stuck carrying the weight of the whole. And in a land as vast and proud as Mongolia, no one should be left to carry that burden alone. Number 5, clash between tradition and modernity. In Mongolia, the past is never far behind. You can see it in the wind-swept gurs round white tents that dot the vast landscape, like moons fallen to earth. You can smell it in the boiled mutton cooked over an open flame in a metal pot passed down through generations. You can hear it in the way elders greet each other with reverent stories carried by voice, not screens. But as cities expand and the world grows louder, a quiet conflict brews inside Mongolian homes. A tension between what was and what is becoming. Tradition versus modern life. At the heart of this divide is a lifestyle that once defined survival. The nomadic rhythm. Families traveled with their herds, lived communally shared, every meal, every space, every moment. Privacy was a luxury and often unnecessary. Living in a GR meant sleeping side by side with grandparents, children, guests, and sharing everything, including warmth, food, and silence. But for a growing number of young Mongolians, especially women, this intimacy now feels less like connection and more like confinement. "I love my family," said one university student in Ulaanbaatar. "But when I go home to the countryside, there is no space to breathe, no room to be myself." She's not alone. As of 2025, more than 70% of Mongolia's youth population lives in urban areas, according to the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. The rural exodus isn't just about jobs, it's about identity. In cities, young people wear fast fashion, speak English, scroll TikTok. They dine in cafes, study economics, and dream in global languages. And back home, many are still expected to milk cows at dawn, marry early, and obey the unspoken rules of the household. This gap is more than generational, it's cultural. Elders clinging to centuries-old customs see tradition as the soul of Mongolian identity. To them, leaving the steppe means abandoning values, forgetting where you come from, losing your roots. But the youth, they see something else. A ceiling, a script written before they were born. And for women, this script is especially suffocating. Modern Mongolian women are educated, globally minded, and increasingly outspoken. By 2024, women made up over 62% of all university graduates in the country. They are lawyers, journalists, tech developers. But when they go home, they're still expected to serve tea, avoid confrontation, and not forget they are daughters first. That's the paradox. A woman can be fluent in 3 languages and still be judged for not knowing how to fold a dumpling. The traditional way, she can lead a company and still be told to sit quietly when elders speak. She may live in a studio apartment downtown, but when she visits her hometown, she's expected to share a gear with 10 people and explain again why she isn't married yet. This creates what many call the silent war, not fought with words but with glances, gestures, and quiet disapproval. The cultural divide isn't about disrespect, it's about evolution. And Mongolia, like many nations with deep roots, is figuring out how to grow without breaking. Some families are bridging the gap, mixing new and old, teaching children to honor tradition, but giving them space to question it. Letting daughters choose when to marry and letting sons cry without shame. But many others are stuck suspended between a world that no longer exists and one they fear to embrace. And so the tension lingers, between dumplings and data science, between jurs and glass skyscrapers, between the daughter who sings old songs by the fire and the one who wears headphones, whispering dreams her grandmother may never understand. This is Mongolia today, not divided but stretching, not broken but bending. And somewhere in that stretch between the past and the possible lies the real story of who this country is becoming. Number 6. Feminism awakens, at a cost. Nowadays, Omthing is stirring across Mongolia. Quietly, boldly. A movement not born from protests in the streets, but from whispered conversations in classrooms, offices, and late-night kitchens. Women are rising, but not without a cost. Over the last 2 decades, Mongolian women have made extraordinary strides. They're graduating at higher rates than men. In fact, as of 2025, women make up nearly 65% of all university graduates, according to the Mongolian Ministry of Education. They're launching businesses, joining parliament, leading tech startups, managing NGOs. Their voices are clearer, their ambition louder, their presence undeniable. And yet many of them are being punished for it. In a society still tethered to deep-rooted gender expectations, a smart, successful woman is often seen not as an asset, but as a threat. A woman with confidence is labeled too loud. A woman with goals is too Western, and a woman with no husband, unwanted. It's a paradox that stings the more a woman achieves, the more she's told she's failing. Failing as a daughter, as a wife, as a woman. In rural towns, this stigma is especially harsh. Community elders sometimes warn young women not to overeducate themselves, fearing they'll become difficult to marry. It's a message repeated in jokes, TV dramas, even family dinners. Be smart, but not too smart. As if intelligence comes with a price tag labeled loneliness. The emotional cost is heavy. Many high-achieving women report feeling isolated, not just romantically, but socially. They feel out of place in their hometowns too, modern for their families, too traditional for global spaces, trapped between worlds with no clear roadmap. In a 2024 study by the Gender Development Association of Mongolia, over 41% of urban women between the ages of 25 and 40 said they experienced social exclusion due to their career or education level. But here's the deeper challenge: while the mindset of women is evolving quickly, the system around them is not. Mongolia's feminist movement is still young. It lacks structure, national leadership, and strong media representation. Most initiatives are small-scale, led by student clubs, local NGOs, or individuals brave enough to speak out. These efforts matter, But without broader support, they often fizzle under pressure. And worse, they get mocked. Feminism in some circles is treated like a joke. Something foreign, something un-Mongolian. Online forums ridicule activists. Male politicians dismiss equality efforts as unrealistic or unnecessary. Even some women hesitate to identify as feminists, afraid of being labeled radical, angry, or anti-family. So what's really happening? This is not just a cultural shift, it's a cultural clash between old systems built to contain women and a new generation that refuses to shrink. But change is never free. It costs comfort, it costs relationships, it costs peace, and yet it's happening anyway. Young women are mentoring girls in rural schools. Mothers are telling their daughters they can say no. Survivors of abuse are speaking publicly. Artists are reclaiming language. Journalists are questioning the system. Little by little, brick by brick, they're building something stronger. But let's be clear, the road ahead is long. Institutional change takes time, policy change takes power, and cultural change, that takes courage. Until then, women continue to pay the price, not just in silence, but in sacrifice. They are still more likely to leave careers for family, more likely to face gender-based violence, more likely to be blamed for their own independence. But maybe, just maybe, the next generation won't. Maybe the girl growing up in a jail today won't have to choose between being smart and being loved. Maybe she won't have to explain why she wants more. And maybe one day being strong won't be seen as something that needs softening. Mongolia is a land of breathtaking contrasts, endless skies, ancient traditions, and a people known for their resilience. But behind that beauty lies a complex reality, a gender crisis reshaping society, cultural customs under pressure, and women bearing the weight of silent struggles. From the wind-swept steppes to the bustling streets of Ulaanbaatar, one question echoes louder than the rest. Can deep cultural change truly heal a nation still torn between past and present? If this story moved you, made you think, or challenged what you thought you knew, don't let it end here. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. What does real progress look like in a place so rooted in tradition? And if you'd like to see more raw human stories from the corners of the world you rarely hear about, subscribe to NVL Travel Documentary and join us on the journey. Your voice matters. Let it be part of the conversation.